Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Hawks Latest, your number one source for news, updates, rumors, opinions, and you guessed it, the latest and the greatest regarding the Atlanta Hawks. I'm your host, Zach Langley, and today we've got a full set of updates to break down for you. This is the 208th episode of Hawks Latest, presented by FanArt, so hopefully you guys have been enjoying the ride. I know I have, and like I said, we got a whole lot to break down today, so before this video gets started, if you guys could go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe, it would be very much appreciated. It would go a very long way, and a huge, huge thank you to Underdog Fantasy for sponsoring today's episode. I know you guys see that QR code in the upper right corner. You should scan it. You won't regret it. Underdog. Make picks, win money. But yeah, remember when I told you guys, you start winning, and really you take care of who is in front of you, and you let the rest kind of like unfold. You let the rest of the standings and everything, all the things that matter, like the implications of the playoffs and everything, like let it take care of itself. Well, it's starting to. The wins and the giant win streak that we are on, it's starting to show in the standings in a very, very real way. So, we got a lot to get into today, as the Hawks do play today. We're looking to extend our streak. But yeah, the Hawks are officially the 6th seed in the Eastern Conference. We are officially out of the play-in, and we are in the playoffs. Right now, if the season ended today, now we got definitely some season left to play, so we can't really let up. We got to, just continue to apply that pressure and to, build on the habits that we have really just kind of developed over this win streak. But it's very encouraging right now. I couldn't be happier covering this team. It's been a lot of fun, and yeah, we've got a lot of momentum, so hopefully we just continue to stack it. Because yeah, if the season ended today, we would be in the postseason. So there's also some growing buzz around Jonathan Kuminga and his long-term future here in Atlanta. We've got to break that down because it is very interesting. Kuminga has a very interesting contract situation, and so I'll talk about what a deal could potentially look like in the offseason, and really how that could unfold, how those negotiations could go, and why the early indicators are pretty encouraging. And then at the very end, right before our viewer comment segment, we are going to preview a huge matchup tonight against the Houston Rockets as this win streak continues. It's a very exciting one. Hopefully the Hawks can take care of business. We are underdogs, so hopefully we can come away with the victory. That'd be a huge way to make it our 12th straight. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into it and start with the bigger picture. This is something that Hawks fans have been waiting on for quite some time. I mean, what a turbulent season this has been. Very up and down. It's been a very unpredictable season. It's why, I've enjoyed covering it on this channel so much because, truly, we always have something to talk about. There's always content, thanks to the aggressiveness of General Manager Anzi Saleh in his first full season as the organization's lead decision maker. It's been undeniable. This guy has come in with a mentality that has been very different from something that Hawks fans have ever seen or ever been able to get used to. We've made 5 in-season trades. If you had said that, heading into the season, if you had told me, with the roster that we had with like the Trae Young and Kristaps Porzingis and the Luke Kennard and everyone on the roster that was on the roster, at the beginning of the year, and you had told me that we had made 5 in-season trades, I would have assumed, this would have just been my general assumption, that we were not good. I would have assumed that the season was just going horribly and they were just deciding to really just do a whole fire sale at the deadline and, get rid of some of the contracts and a lot of the guys they didn't want to tie up long-term money to. Now, that was the case. They did want to, it wasn't a fire sale, but they did want to, kind of restructure the roster and to wish, fit more of like who's really projected to be in the long-term core, and get rid of people who weren't necessarily seen, to be part of this organization beyond this year. Anzi went ahead and got a kickstart on that. Like he got a head start. But in doing that, the roster has gelled. Like he made all the right moves, and it has resulted in this really long winning streak. And so yeah, when you take care of who's in front of you and you focus on the opponent in front of you, it does everything else will kind of shape itself. Like you focus on who you've got. You don't look at the same. Obviously, we are going to speculate, like on this channel and in the comments and everything. We're going to speculate on like what needs to happen for the Hawks to get in this specific spot and everything. But that's not what the team has been doing, and that has really aided their winning streak. I know Jalen Johnson has talked about several times about how they're not even paying any mind to the winning streak. Like they're not focused on it at all. And if you start to focus on stuff like that, it could distract you. It could it make you be a little farsighted and not focus on what you have really right in front of you. They definitely can't do that tonight against the Houston Rockets. So hopefully that winning streak is still not really on their minds. Although it's going to be a little bit difficult for it not to be because again, they have a chance for 12 in a row tonight. But that all said, last night with losses from both the Miami Heat and the Orlando Magic, the Hornets beat up on the Orlando Magic, and so the Magic suffered their third consecutive loss. Again, great timing for them to go on a little bit of a losing streak. And the Miami Heat, they got beat down by Luka Doncic and the LA Lakers. Luka Doncic had like 60 points, and so that is also the Miami Heat's third consecutive loss. So now with both of those teams on 3-game losing streak, and the Atlanta Hawks on an 11-game winning streak, we have now jumped to both of them. We are officially the 6th seed in the Eastern Conference. I mean, what a relief. Just looking at the standings and seeing the Hawks not in the play-in, it's something that is like, I'm like, wow. Like I sat there and looked at it for a few minutes, like, this is nice. This is really good. If you told me like 2 or 3 weeks ago that this would be the case, I would have told you that you're tripping. We were 4 games under 500, and now we are 7 games over 500 in the 6th seed in the Eastern Conference. We're not even in the play-in anymore. I mean, what a late season resurgence and just absolute turnaround. If the season ended today, the Atlanta Hawks would be the 6th seed, taking on the 3-seeded New York Knicks in the first round of the 2026 NBA playoffs. That'll be a competitive matchup. If that ends up being the case, which there's a realistic chance that the Hawks do get the Knicks round 1 in that 3-6 matchup, it's going to be a close one. It's going to be a very intense series. We started really the Trae Young era by defeating the Knicks in the 2021 Eastern Conference playoffs. Wouldn't it be a little bit, of a great story if the Hawks, once we traded Trae Young, we started this new era led by Jalen Johnson with another series victory over the Knicks? Like, that's how we know we're going into a new era. If one of our teams in our new franchise, not new franchise, but new like faces of the franchise, defeat the New York Knicks, that's how we signal that we're in a new era. That would be crazy. That would be such a funny story. They're gonna have to chant F Jalen Johnson, the way that they have been chanting F Trae Young for all of these years. That would be an intense one. I certainly would have a lot of fun. I'd maybe even go up to New York for a game because, catching a playoff game in MSG would be remarkable. But yeah, like the way the Hawks are playing right now, like if you look at a potential playoff series versus the New York Knicks, like that could really go either way. At the beginning of the season, obviously I would have, not beginning of the season, but, like a month or two ago, I would have been like, oh yeah, the Knicks would destroy us in a playoff series. But now we can beat them. I truly believe this team can beat them in a playoff series, but yeah, it has been great. The team has won 11 straight games. They've gone from fighting to stay afloat in the play-in picture to controlling their own destiny as a top 6 team. You control what you can control. And the Hawks have found consistency, they found chemistry, and most importantly, they have found a true identity. So this is no longer a team and an organization that's trying to figure things out. This is a team that's rolling. We have a chance to be the hottest team in the Eastern Conference once the playoffs begin, and having that mark, having that stamp, it can go a long way. Teams are going to fear us in the postseason, and bring on the Knicks. Bring on the Knicks. Let's do it. Let's have this. Well, I mean, obviously, I would like to get the 5 seed, and that's well within pick. I mean, we are 1.5 games out of the 5 seed, so that's another realistic shot. It's just I hate that we laid eggs against the Toronto Raptors like multiple times at the beginning of the season because they obviously have the season series on us. So yeah, exciting times to be an Atlanta Hawks fan. I'm glad you guys have been tuning into the channel. And so now let's move on from all the very encouraging. And this is another pretty encouraging segment because just of how it has gone so far. But it could get a little bit controversial in the offseason. It could get very intense. I don't even really think it'll get there, but it could because they may not see eye to eye as it gets closer. But if anything of this early tenure has shown anything, like it could pan out pretty well. And so Jonathan Kuminga. Again, Kuminga is a fan favorite on this channel. I know we have a lot of Warriors fans that are tuning in just to stay updated and informed about Kuminga. And first of all, before we get into this, Kuminga is out tonight. If you guys remember, the Hawks do play tomorrow. It is a back-to-back. Kuminga was never going to play both nights of a back-to-back. So I do think it makes sense to kind of rest him today. And then tomorrow against the Warriors, go ahead and getting him back into action, for a little bit of a revenge game at home. I think that would be a great chance for him to build a little bit more momentum as we head into the season's final stretch. But yeah, tonight he's not going to be playing. So it's going to be up to the Hawks to go ahead and get that W without him because it is an important one. So I would have liked to have him, but, you kind of have to make that sacrifice because he wasn't going to play both nights of a back-to-back. I mean, there's a very real argument that Kuminga has been the most impactful trade deadline acquisition in the NBA this season because, he hasn't played a lot of games, but in the games that he has played, he has been very impactful. He's given the Hawks bench exactly what it has needed. Energy, athleticism, rebounding, defensive versatility, really all of the things that kind of have made him gel and really kind of succeed in today's NBA, like as a second unit player or really as a starter, especially in this high paced, this quick Atlanta, transition focused offense and really defense. He has fit perfectly into Atlanta's style. I think they knew he would fit really well, but I don't think they thought he would fit this well very quickly. And so that's why I think these contract talks have already started to present themselves. I don't think we would have gotten any sort of rumors on this if it had gone pretty poorly. And really, obviously, these decisions are not final. So, if Kuminga all of a sudden falls off towards the end of the season, which I don't think he will, but if he does, then yeah, these contract conversations will shift, and they certainly will take a little bit of a turn. Yeah, and so it's just very interesting. The Hawks are obviously undefeated when Kuminga plays. I was saying last episode. That he has a very false picture of this Atlanta Hawks organization because since he has arrived, we just haven't lost. So that's been interesting. And when we're talking about contracts and stuff, we got to consider that this early tenure has not been flawless. He's been dealing with that lingering knee issue. They've been very careful with him. You may not want to tie up long-term, big money to a guy who is unable to stay on the floor for too long. But then again, you got to consider how long this knee issue is going to be lingering. I know it has been lingering for a lot of the season in Golden State. And then now into Atlanta, and so it is a little bit concerning. Obviously we didn't want to tie up big money to Kristaps Porzingis, but then we dealt him in the trade that sent Kuminga here. So it was a player that can't stay healthy for a player that is also kind of struggling to stay healthy. But you take the upside on the guy that is much younger. Kuminga's 23 years old, so yeah, I'm willing. That's a gamble I'm willing to take. But yeah, we're starting to hear real conversations about his future in Atlanta. We got an official report yesterday. That did specifically talk about the contract numbers potentially for a Kuminga extension. According to NBA insider Jake Fisher, who has been correct on the Hawks several times, and he actually just did a recent piece on the Atlanta Hawks and their winning streak, and talking to several guys on the team. Very, very interesting, good, in-depth, very, very detailed stuff. So, it's good to see the Hawks get that sort of national recognition. But he did report on the Kuminga extension and that there is mutual interest between Jonathan Kuminga and the Hawks in working out a long-term extension. That's right. They want to keep JK here long-term. That's very encouraging to see. Again, I didn't think we would get a report like this early. I still think they're kind of in a feeling out period, but again, it has just been so successful early on that they want to go ahead and kind of silence the narrative that, he could move this offseason because that obviously is, there's a chance of that, that's not completely ruled out. If the Hawks opt out of this team option, which, would go into next year, Kuminga will be an unrestricted free agent. Teams will be able to sign him and throw him some good offers. But if he's really loving Atlanta as much as he is appearing to, and if his play style continues to thrive here, I don't see why he would want to sign anywhere else. But yeah, the idea if Atlanta was going to extend him this offseason, which it is trending towards that, it would be for us to decline his 2026-27 team option, which is $24.3 million. That's a lot of money. Kuminga will not get a contract that large, but they want to negotiate a longer term deal. And if they do that, I'd be very encouraged because Anzi Saleh has shown that in these contract negotiations, he doesn't play. He has signed guys to team friendly contracts. Not even necessarily Anzi, but he just the overall identity that the Hawks have been building with this core. We're not committing super high long-term money to these guys. Dyson Daniels, $25 million, Jalen Johnson, $30 million. It's contracts that are not big. They're not maxes. And Kuminga obviously isn't going to be our highest paid player. He won't even make as much as Dyson Daniels. We're maybe looking at a 3 or 4 year deal at $20 million annually or probably less, maybe $18 million annually. That would be a steal if you're considering the overall potential that Kuminga has. When we originally traded for him, it was seen as a low risk, high reward move. If he played well, great. You keep him or extend him. If he didn't, you had that flexibility with a team option. But he's forcing the issue. The Hawks have a real decision to make. It's whether they view him as a long-term building block or just a valuable piece that they can leverage. Because then again, you have the options of a sign and trade. So there's just so many things to consider, and I just thought it was very interesting that this early on in his tenure, we're already having, discussions on his long-term here. If he keeps playing like this, and, the way he played last game, not the way he played the 2 games prior, but his value's only going to go up, and so, you got to, really just consider Atlanta's financial flexibility. We also have all these guys on expiring contracts like CJ, Gabe, Keaton, Jock. All of them are expiring deals. Also, the team options on Kuminga and Moge. So, there's just a lot of ways that they could go to create this flexibility. And so Onzi is going to have options. He's been essential to the win streak. So hopefully, we evaluate this properly and, we don't, mess up any leverage that we potentially have in negotiations. Fast breaks, buzzer beaters, and block parties are back, and Underdog is the best place to get in on all of the action. Playing on Underdog is easy. Just pick whether your favorite players will go higher or lower on stats like points, rebounds, steals, and more. Get your picks right, and you can win up to 5,000 times your cash. This week on Underdog, I'm looking at Pistons versus Warriors and selecting former Hawk Kristaps Porzingis for higher than 16.5 points and Duncan Robinson, sharpshooter for the Detroit Pistons, for higher than 11.5 points. Download the app today and use promo code BasketballFan to score $75 in bonus entries when you play your first $5. That's promo code BasketballFan. Underdog. Make picks, win money.
Must be 18 plus. 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska. 19 plus in Colorado for some games. 21 plus in Arizona, Massachusetts, and Virginia. And present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. See assets.underdogfantasy.com/play and get terms DFSTML for details. Offer not valid in Maryland, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. In New York, call the 24/7 hotline at 1-878 or text HOMI 467-369.
All right, let's shift to tonight's matchup. The Hawks are back. We are looking for our 12th straight victory. I mean, if you had told me going into and here's the crazy part. I was chopping it up with one of my friends a couple weeks ago, and we got some downtime. And I was considering, getting some tickets for this game in Houston and spending some time in Texas and going and catching this Hawks game. We ended up not doing that. I kind of regret that because I didn't. How could I have predicted that we would have gone in a 12-game winning or 11-game winning streak heading into this one? I couldn't have. I can't see the future like that. I wish I could, but you make those decisions and you just kind of live with, potentially not doing something like that. It would have been cool, but regardless, there's a lot at stake tonight. And normally there wouldn't be a lot at stake, in a late season battle between two teams that are in separate conferences. But in this specific instance, there are a lot of implications, and the Hawks have to take this very, very seriously. They cannot look ahead. I know we're playing tomorrow. Winning both games of back-to-back is already difficult, but especially when in this first game you're taking on a very, very tough Western Conference opponent, a team that has been battle-tested over and over and over again. They have been kind of struggling a little bit recently, but that's still a very good basketball team. Again, like this team feels stable right now, so I would not be surprised at all if they got a victory, but it's not going to come easily. It's going to be really difficult. For most of the year for the Hawks, it's been injuries, lineup changes, constant adjustments, but now they've found a rhythm, obviously, 11 straight. Our last time out was a 135-120 win over the Dallas Mavericks, and it wasn't just another win, it was a statement that this team has really kind of figured things out. You're seeing the core really emerge. Jalen Johnson, Dyson Daniels, Onyeka Okongwu, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, supported by veterans like CJ McCollum, and of course, our young forward, Jonathan Kuminga, coming off the bench, but even, more young guys like, Zach Langley, who's come off the bench and done well. Like Gabe Vincent, who has been a veteran who came off the bench and has done well. Corey Kispert, who has been a little bit inconsistent, but he's just a steady piece that, we bring in like to start the second quarter, and he plays like a little bit of minutes every night. He's just a guy that him being out there is not actively hurting the team. Zach Langley, who has been a very solid center off the bench since acquiring him. That was a move that didn't get a lot of recognition because that was a very low end, just under the radar move. And so, he is just all of these guys that we brought in have just blossomed. And even head coach Quinn Snyder has talked about how important it's been for players to adjust to their roles and embrace a selfless mindset. He has really, dialed in on that word selfless. Just really, all these guys have been sacrificing, maybe even their own numbers for the greater good of the organization and the trajectory of this team. And it's really worked out. He said that's what you're seeing right now. Guys are buying in. And on the other side, as I kind of said earlier, the Rockets are struggling a little bit. And now, you got to take their term struggling with a grain of salt. It's not, the traditional struggling. But they are coming off of back-to-back losses against the same opponent. So playing 2 games in a row against the same opponent can mess up your flow a little bit, regardless of win or loss. When you're playing a team like the Lakers who don't necessarily play super fast, and, they kind of break you down in the half court. And then playing 2 games against them, getting used to kind of their offensive scheme and the way that they move the ball. Then you go and you return home and you play a team like the Hawks, who dominate in transition and are super quick and have one of the best defenses in the NBA since the All-Star break, and move the ball better than any other team in the NBA, like lead the NBA in assists. Like, that's going to take a major adjustment. They could come out very flat, and if they do, the Atlanta Hawks need to take advantage. They do not need to even consider, having a slow start. Obviously, that's never the goal. You never want to have a slow start. But particularly in a game like this, where they can kind of make some early momentum, and it could prove crucial. Like, if you get the lead early, you may never lose it. And so, the Hawks just simply, they have to take advantage. They gave up over 60% shooting in the game. I think one of these last 2 games against the Lakers, the Lakers have been very efficient, really over their winning streak, because they're on a winning streak of their own. But again, like the Hawks need to shoot that efficiently or more. Obviously, that's going to be very difficult, but they can do it with the looks that they have been generating. Defensively, the Rockets have had a little bit of issues, especially in pick and roll coverage. So that's another thing that Atlanta can operate in, whether it's Nikhil as the ball handler, CJ as the ball handler, Jalen as the ball handler. We have so many guys who can do so many different things offensively, and that versatility on that end has proven crucial to this playoff run. Like, I mean, not playoff run, but this just overall late season resurgence. Just the way that they have been able to play, really in a variety of roles. Like, Alperen Sengun and Reed Shepherd for the Houston Rockets are still adjusting to new defensive schemes, and it's been inconsistent so far. Again, the Hawks have to exploit that. I mean, no doubt about it. Again, like I said earlier, Kuminga is out due to knee injury management, but he probably will play tomorrow against the Warriors. That's not official, but I really doubt Jonathan Kuminga would sit in a potential revenge game at home as we look for maybe our 13th straight win. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be an absolute test. Can the Hawks keep this streak alive without one of their more impactful bench players? We've played several of these games among this winning streak without him, so hopefully we can continue to kind of build the momentum that we have either with or without him in the lineup. If they can, it's just going to prove to how deep and complete this team has become. I expect definitely some more minutes for Mo Gay tonight with Kuminga out. He has proven that he can be a very valuable defensive piece and also kind of a tone setter, even in a playoff environment. So, hopefully, we play him some good minutes tonight, because he definitely deserves it. Remember, this is the first game of a back-to-back. Warriors are up next tomorrow. And so hopefully, we start this back-to-back on a very high note. Momentum seriously matters here. Now, moving on to our fourth and final segment, our viewer comment segment. Give you guys a voice to be heard in the Atlanta Hawks community and giving me a chance to respond to some of your hot takes, some of your bold opinions of things that make the basketball world go around. I've loved implementing this segment. I see all your comments. I appreciate them all. Can't get to them all, so I have implemented this to, again, just give you guys my full in-depth analysis and just overall opinions on your opinion. So without further ado, let's get up to this first one. At Damron Lampkin 563 said, 20-6 after the All-Star break looks like it can really happen. Yeah, I remember your comment right after the All-Star break, talking about how we can go 20-6 after the All-Star break. I'm going to be honest. I thought you were tripping. I didn't necessarily believe in what you were, saying, and I maybe that's my fault for not having enough confidence in this team. That just sounded like very much a dream. It was obviously a dream scenario. But yes, that is very, very much within play. It could really happen if the Hawks just continue playing with the amount of momentum that they have been playing with recently. And operating with pace and efficiency and being stellar on the defensive end. Like, there's no reason that we can't win 20 games post All-Star break. It has been an absolute late season turnaround that really just cannot be described. Obviously we haven't had the toughest schedule, but you take care of who's in front of you. And that's what the Hawks have been doing. Good teams take care of business against inferior teams. And that has been a thing that even in the past several years, we have been unable to do on a consistent basis. And that is a clear sign of a identity shift. And they're developing this new, just continuity that we just haven't had before. And so, yeah, if we can beat the Rockets tonight, I might get to talking crazy. I might get to, start talking about how, maybe we can really kind of maybe match the 19-game winning streak that we set in 2014-15. That would obviously be very, very difficult. But with the way they're playing right now, the way they're moving the ball, it's a possibility. And it's going to start with a win tonight. If you can make it 12 straight against a tough Western Conference opponent, who is going to be in our way from winning out? We got 13 games left in the season, so I mean it's gonna be really difficult. But let's make history, folks. let's have like the longest winning streak in Hawks history, and let's just keep stacking. I mean, let's again, like I talked about in a prior episode, like let's get greedy. If we can win tonight, there's no reason to start. We can't start getting greedy, and we definitely, if we win tonight, we should take care of business tomorrow against the Golden State Warriors. Appreciate the comment. Next up, at Eastside Keith said, "Bruh, I really feel like the Pelicans and Bucks are about to start winning like crazy." The Pelicans, yeah, the Pelicans. I got no words for the Pelicans. They, for some reason, think a play-in push is within reach. It's not. But DeJounte Murray and Trey Murphy and Zion Williamson and all of those guys have just been playing like their lives depend on it. And it might, low-key, like their NBA futures, could depend on, maybe like them having a late season resurgence because, they... Again, like even though a play-in is very unlikely, like the way that they have been playing over the past few weeks, like it does show that they have the talent on that team to be like at least a sneaky team in the Western Conference. But like health and players not playing up to what they were expected to, like did kind of damage them early in the season, and so they've been slowly trying to build momentum back since that really poor start, and it just sucks because like we did have like top 3 odds at getting the number 1 pick because of them, but now they've just started to win and win and win and win, and it is really frustrating. But again, like I can't be too mad right now because they still have pretty decent odds to land us a high pick. They have like the 7th best odds right now, but again, they're just still winning. We're probably gonna end up with like the 8th best odds by the end of the season, which again, it's frustrating, but anything can happen on lottery night. And also the Milwaukee Bucks are just gonna keep losing, and that's the thing. I'm not really worried about where this pick lands because I do think the Bucks are just gonna keep losing. I think they're gonna be an absolute free fall for the rest of the season. As we all know, there's that controversy between them and Giannis Antetokounmpo. But Giannis doesn't want to sit out for the rest of the season, but they do want to sit out Giannis for the rest of the season. So I'm just assuming that Giannis isn't going to play the rest of the year, and they're just going to keep losing, and maybe they can end up having higher odds than the Pelicans. And so again, we get whatever pick is lower between those two, or better. Whichever pick is closer to 1, we're going to get. So I appreciate the comment. Finally, at Zach Campbell 3229 said, if Acuff is there at 7 or 8, I think you'd be crazy not to take him. If he's telling the truth about his height, he's 6'3", not 5'11". CJ is 6'3". Steph, Kyrie, Dame are all 6'2". If you watch him play, he's legit. I don't know that there are 5 guys I'd take over him for the Hawks. I mean, that's a very valid opinion. I just think it's a very much an Onzi thing where it's like, CJ may be like kind of like a short-term answer, and what he wants to build moving forward wouldn't necessarily involve a guy like Acuff. But yes, the talent is undeniable. He's absolutely legit. I'm not denying that in any sense. And, again, like, I don't know if he's really 6'3". Like, players do lie about that. Staff, staff's like related to the player. Like they do kind of, skew a player's height a little bit. I mean, for a while, we thought Trey was like 6'2" or 6'3". And he's really not. But yeah, like, if we're just looking at it, like, just like the frame of some of these other guys, yeah, like Acuff, there's potential to be a good defender. But if we're looking at Acuff's actual skill set, I do think a lot of you guys in the comments are overstating like what he is defensively. I mean, he's a very poor defender. And that's not even me trying to be a hater, but like, and he's so special offensively. So it's like, again, if we have like the 8th pick and he's still there, we probably will just end up taking him because it's like a thing where it's like he's just, I feel like Onzi could end up taking the best player available, in which he obviously would be the best player available. But then again, I don't even know if he'll fall to 7 or 8, which does mean another talented like forward or guard will be available at 7 or 8 that we can kind of steal and potentially have like a, just take advantage of what those other teams have done. But yes, he's very much legit. And so I wouldn't be mad if we got him. It's just a thing where it's like, I don't think it's realistic, just considering the identity that Onzi has really tried to build in his short time here. So appreciate all the comments, guys, but that's going to do it for today's episode of Hawks Latest. If you guys enjoyed today's breakdown, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss a single update here on the channel. We're going to be pumping out videos every single day, keep you guys informed on the latest and the greatest regarding the Atlanta Hawks. But let me know down below in the comments, what are your thoughts on the Hawks capturing that 6th seed? Hopefully we don't let it go. I mean, there's a possibility we do, but we can really, make some noise with a win tonight over the Rockets and then maybe taking care of business tomorrow over the Warriors. Let me know that down below. Let me know your thoughts on Kuminga's contract talks. What would the contract you guys give Kuminga be? How far are you guys willing to go? How much money are you willing to tie up to him long term? How many years? How much annually? Let me know that down below. And also, what are your thoughts on the game tonight? Can the Hawks get their 12th consecutive victory over the resilient and tough Houston Rockets? It's going to be very difficult. But if they have shown us anything in over this 11-game winning streak, it's that they can beat anyone, and they can really apply the pressure on any given night. So let me know that all down below. But once again, thank you guys so much for watching. I'm Zach Langley, and I will see you guys next time.